was made based on information that was available to the decision makers. And as we all know, it's turned out not to have been correct. But I do believe that the judgment at the time was really based on what they believe was the right decision to do. And these things happen. You take genuine, honest decision, hopefully for the benefit of the country, and it turns out not to be the case. I believe that's what happened, because I was really privy to a lot of the stuff that was going on, and unfortunately we are where we are. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So the question is, why should you not be prosecuted for causing this loss to the state? $164 million as a result of your omissions and commissions.
I don't believe it was a willful act on the part of the decision makers at the time. It was a decision that was taken with all sincerity for the benefit of this country, and it turned out, per the judgment, that it was not the right call.
Well, that is why I asked why you shouldn't be prosecuted. I'm sure it is the court that will determine if it was a willful act or not.
When it comes to opinion, leave it to his opinion. Our rules don't ask for his opinion.
No,
why he should not be prosecuted, that opinion. It's a legal opinion. So leave that one out.
All right, so Honorable nominee, are you aware that the Volta River Authority functioned with an 8-member board instead of 9 for over a year in breach of the Volta River Amendment Act 2005, Act 692? Why did this happen? And is it fair to say that all actions that may have been engaged in by this board is null and void?
Mr. Chairman, regrettably, I'm not aware. This is the first time I'm hearing this. Thank you very much.
Okay, so you are not aware that it functioned with less than the number required?
I know, Mr.
As a
Chairman.
result of the omission by the appointing authority?
I know, Mr. Chairman.
I thought you were in charge of power.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not in charge of the appointment of board members.
All right. Mr. Chairman, on PDS, you have given a number of answers to questions related to that botched transaction. At the time of the issue, when it was topical, you claimed that initial investigations suggested there was a grand scheme to deceive the state. According to reports, you said, quote, "There appears to be a grand scheme to hoodwink the country. We are not talking about just small boys trying to do something. This was a grand scheme that has been perpetrated, and I'm happy to say that we have found out," unquote. Your substantive minister categorically alleged fraud against the promoters of PDS at the time, and government eventually terminated the contract after the alleged fraudulent company had controlled and managed a strategic asset such as the ECG for months. Now, how do you feel that despite the fraudulent representation allegations by your then substantive minister and your claim of a discovery of a grand scheme to hoodwink the state, not a single person is undergoing trial for at least deceiving a public officer or attempting to game the state?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I do believe that the Ghanaian stakeholders who were involved in the procurement of the payment guarantee did what they were supposed to do by transferring the necessary amount of money to the company, I do believe it's called Alcoot. There's a gentleman called Joe Australia, who unfortunately is not within this jurisdiction. As to the Ghanaians, my understanding is that they did what they had to do. But the fact of the matter is the demand guarantee was not in place, and that was condition precedent. And it brought the whole thing down, unfortunately, because ECG or the country would have lost a great deal. And I'm sure you would have been the first person, honorable member, to have given it to the government for not making sure that there was demand guarantee. And the absence of the demand guarantee just was not good enough for us to continue with the transaction. And that's what brought the whole thing down.
Honorable Nominee, I understand all of that, and I also understand that it is debatable, even among government appointees. But the question I'm asking is, with that evidence, are you disappointed, for example, that nobody has been held responsible and perhaps undergoing prosecution for at least deceiving public officers to take control of such a strategic national asset for almost a year?
No, I'm not disappointed, Mr. Chairman, because the Attorney General did do a lot of investigations, and I am sure if there had been any wrongdoing on the part of the Ghanaian players, they would have been hauled before the courts. They are not before the courts, maybe because there was no evidence of culpability found against them. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
But if they misrepresented a demand guarantee, like you say, that is not acceptable. That is something wrong.
No, like I said earlier, the Ghanaian players did all that they had to do. All the monies that were supposed to go went. Unfortunately, the company's representatives and, yes, the partners on the other side were the ones who, unfortunately, did not have the capacity to actually issue the guarantee that was required. And that is what I think the Ghana team should be commended for doing due diligence to unearth that nefarious act on the part of the foreign partners of the Ghanaian players.
So will you consider it which hand if another government decides to take a different approach to this?
If new evidence come to light, then that is the law.
You've done 3+. How many follow-ups?
Well, I thought Minority Leader
No,
has
please.
yielded his time to me.
No,
so,
no, please.
So,
No,
so, so I.
No, please. Thank you.
Last one, Chairman.
I
Last
like
one.
the
Last
Sweeney
one.
strategy.
Last one. Thank you. Let me enjoy it small. Well, Honorable Nominee, by November 2020, IPPs were up in arms and cautioned that we might suffer doomsday if government didn't find money to pay the debts that government owed them. You accuse them at some point of unnecessarily creating tension and acting like a pressure group. I'm sure you recall. They obviously didn't take kindly to that and asserted that they weren't a pressure group, but an indebted group that only wanted to be paid. Fast forward to 2021, then power instability started. And again, you denied that it wasn't a financial problem. And you attributed the problem to generation shortfalls and West African gas pipeline issues. I have all the news reports here when you talked about some scheduled maintenance and how some of the plans that were supposed to come on board also failed. And then some West African gas pipeline issues. And you assured that it was going to be fixed by March 2021. That's what the news report suggested. Now, March came and passed, and your minister now attributes the power challenges to maintenance and improvement of distribution lines issues. Who should the people believe? You or the substantive minister, you who was in charge of power in the last 4 years, talking about some generational shortfalls as a result of scheduled maintenance and West African gas pipelines being responsible for the crisis, or the challenges with maintenance and improvements of distribution lines? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the honourable member has got it totally 100% wrong. I think your timelines is absolutely way out, because I could never have said that in March that something was going to come to an end. Okay, something was
Want our colleague to pick his CV. Honorable, can you assist the chair? If you take your CV. It says you are Managing Director, Kukon's Company Limited, from 1998 to 2017. Is that right?
That's correct. 20.
That's on page 2 of your CV.
Yeah.
And the employment history.
I think that is wrong, because that is actually not incorrect. It should have been 2013. 2013, when I came into Parliament.
So you are saying that you were a director until 2013.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
So whilst you were here as a member of Parliament, the company, you were no longer with the company.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a company that is owned by you, or you were working for them?
Mr. Chairman, I was a shareholder in that company.
So what happens to your shares?
I ceded my shares to my wife, who was also a director.
Now, you look at the CV again, even though this was asked earlier about your role as a police officer from 1982 to 1985, right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And knowing the United Kingdom, were you a citizen of the United Kingdom to enable you to be a police officer?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
So what happened to your citizenship?
I renounced it before filing for to become a parliamentarian.
So you are no longer a British citizen?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Now, between 2013 and 17, and then 2017 and 2021 January, did you declare your assets?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
You did in all the period?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
I noticed that the education you had, you went to GIMPA on page 1 of your CV to do LLB between 2010 and 2013. Oh, that time you were not in Parliament, right?
No.
You were not in Parliament.
No, Mr. Chairman, no.
Earlier, you were asked a question about the street lighting, and I was worried about your answer with regards to the theft, knowing that you were working and you were in charge of power. I mean, there will be thefts everywhere. Even the President of Parliament, if measures were not put in place, even with the measures, we'll continue to struggle with thievery. What do you think we'll have to do to be able to overcome this? Because they're saying that we'll use solar. Solar panels are still being stolen, as alluded by one of my colleagues, Patricia Peje. Even if the batteries are on top, people still steal them. What, in your view, having stayed in that office for 4 years, do you think we need to do to be able to brighten up our streets? And most especially, those that we've already installed that are not working?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it is true. I think we have enumerated a whole lot of the challenges that have been encountered, not only in the last 4 years, for years, within the jurisdiction, as far as street lights are concerned. And that's probably the reason why, having been briefed, the Honorable Minister for Energy said we probably do need to sit down bipartisan and come up with solutions. There are technological means of solving this problem, like tamper alert and that sort of thing. But these are expensive stuff that we really need as a people to come together and agree that we're going to bite the bullet and go for them. Because yes, indeed, there are street lights in the system that if you attempt to remove them, alarm will sound or some lights will come on and you'll be recorded. They are there, I've seen them, but they are not cheap. they are not cheap.
So I realize that it's very enthused about cost.
Yes,
It's not looking at the value.
yeah, it's a cost.
But-
Is everything. It drives everything.
But Mr. Chairman, the fact of the matter is that majority of the street lights that are not on are not as a result of any theft. The cables are there, every component is there. It is just no maintenance. And he will agree with me. Majority of them, it's not that they've been stolen. It's not that the cables have been stolen. It's that we are not maintaining them. And being somebody who had been in charge of power, what, in his view, having stayed in this office and I've observed this, should we do to be able to keep these very expensive street lights that we install using the taxpayers' money, lightening the communities?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, as you probably know, the street lights, once they have been installed, they are given to the district assemblies or municipal assemblies to really maintain them. Unfortunately, they haven't, and I had an occasion to call all the DC or whatever, MMDCs, call them all, Accra and Kumasi, and actually charge them to really be up and doing as far as the street lights are concerned. And I even mentioned the first time I drove from Labadi Beach Hotel to the Bush Road, is it that thing called Bush Road? There's Rasta Bush Road at the back of Trade Fair. The lights were off, and it really was very dark with mangroves on both sides of the road. So I asked to know the DC for the area. She got up and actually charged her. She should do something about it. And guess what? Within 3 days, the lights were on. Apparently, it was something very, very small. That was the problem. The ministry does not have the resources, and we are not indeed in charge of maintenance of the street lights. It's the MMDCs who are supposed to do that. And we charge them, Kumasi and Accra. Unfortunately, it was a 3-day wonder, 9-day wonder. They did something about it and just forgot about them again. So it's something that we have to really start pushing to get them to be up and doing, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, there's this street light levy that your ministry manages, because it is part of the electricity bill that all of us pay. Do you think that amount is too small, or that amount, part of it should be going to a district assembly to enable them maintain these street lights?
That is something that we can look at, Mr. Chairman.
Street light levy, currently, what is it being used for?
It is used for the maintenance of some street, ceremonial streets mainly. We do that, and also some of it is used as part of the rural electrification to help out in the to augment the limited budgetary allocation for rural electrification.
Chairman, is that not misapplication? Because if you say street light levy, all of us know that we are paying to deal with street lights. Now you are saying part of it is used for rural electrification. Are you stating that for a fact, or you are just assuming?
I will not be quoted on that, but I do believe that it permits us. We have the right to use it for lighting purposes within the country. It is not used for anything else but lighting, period.
And you also said ceremonial streets. At least I know I have one from Airport Runabout to Anaga Junction. It's one of the ceremonial streets. And Honorable Madam Patricia P.J. will tell you she's been KMA boss before, and now is a seeded municipal from Kumasi. We've never seen either your ministry or ECD trying to fix any of their street lights. It's still the municipal assembly and sometimes the MP who try to fix it. So if you say some ceremonial street lights are being maintained, which ones specifically, so that we can be able to zero down on those that are being maintained using the street light levy?
Yes, lights have been provided to the metropolitan assemblies for just that purpose. We have been giving lights to the MCEs of the major metropolis in the country, as and when they put in the request. And I personally have given them over the years since I've been at the ministry. When they come to complain about lights not functioning, the actual luminaires not functioning, we do give them the lights to go and change those that have died.
But Chairman, I was just following from his own answer when he said part of it is used in maintaining ceremonial street lights. Now, give me an example of the ceremonial streets that you maintain the street. You are talking about distribution of street lights. These are two different things.
Yes, Honorable, you mentioned the Abu Abu to Airport Runabout, Kotoko Street from Ashanti Town Post Office to Swami Runabout, and the Honorable MC for Kumasi will bear me out. I have personally been to see them being installed, and that is part of maintenance. Changing dead lights is part of maintenance. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No, what you are talking about is giving complete street lights to MMDCs to put it at strategic places where they require lighting. We are talking about maintaining the street lights that have been installed already. And you said that part of this street lights levy is used in maintaining ceremonial street lights. And I said, give me an example of some of the ceremonial street lights, because I know at least the one that is in my constituency is not being maintained by your ministry. So give me an example of one that your ministry is in charge and maintaining to ensure that the lightings are on.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the word maintenance, I include the changing of dead bulbs for new ones. Thank you.
I'm not disputing that, but you said that the ceremonial street, I said, give me an example of the ceremonial street that you are maintaining the street lights.
I've just told you, I gave your own, Mr. Chairman, your own constituency. I gave example of your own constituency from Angranga Junction all the way to Airport Runabout, from Airport Runabout to Swami Runabout. That is one ceremonial street. The ones in Accra here, from the Liberation Circle all the way in front of Jubilee House, 37, all the way to East Legon, we provided them with street lights to change those that are malfunctioning. And that is what I mean by maintenance.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, on PDS, he said the reconciliations are ongoing. Did I hear you say that?
I said that reconciliation needs to be done, but the case, I believe, is in court right now.
Mr. Chairman, I want to find out from when, can he remember exactly when the termination of the PDS contract came into effect?
If my memory serves me right, I think it was the 30th July 2019, I think, yeah.
And we are almost 2 years down the line, and reconciliation has not been done. And this is a sector under your supervision as the Deputy Minister for Energy. And you don't know the stage where the reconciliation has gotten to, and we have money that is between us and PDS that we are not able to retrieve.
Mr. Chairman, this is a matter of law. We proceeded to court, and the wheel of justice moves very slowly sometimes. That is not for me to hurry the courts.
Is it the reconciliation that is sent to court or the termination of the contract that is sent to court? Because we are talking about two different things. Yes, we all agree they were seeking redress in court, but we are talking about the account that you said reconciliation is ongoing. And I'm saying it's been 2 years, and we are not concerned about all the reconciliation of the accounts is part of what is before court.
Mr. Chairman, This forms part of the whole challenges that is going on right now between PDS and ECG. Really, I did not say it is ongoing. I never said that. I said it has to be done. And once the courts, I'm sure the courts will probably, whenever it comes to a finality, will give orders as to what to be done with the monies we are talking about, Mr. Chairman.
So I want to find out from you, the accounts that these monies that are lodged, is he aware of the bank?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Is it the account, is it a what do you call interest earning account?
Mr. Chairman, I really do not know, but I would have thought so. There's no way that you put X amount of money in an account just to sit there. I'm sure it's earning some. I hope so. Anyway, Mr. Chairman.
I just want certainty because you were the deputy minister in charge. So in fact, my belief is that your minister even takes briefs from this sector from you because he has put you in charge. And you don't have this detail, whether that account is an interest deal, but you're wholly hoping.
Mr. Chairman, I wasn't in charge of day-to-day running of ECG or PDS for that matter. No, we are policy generators and we oversee the agency, but we don't go in to find out which account GCB or UTB, whatever. It's not my job, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, earlier he was asked about the termination and how we got there, and he talked about the demand guarantee. It was later realized that it was not there. Do you think the right due diligence was done before entering into this contract with PDS?
Mr. Chairman, absolutely. Thank you.
If due diligence was done, how come that we didn't know that the demand guarantees were not available?
Mr. Chairman, demand guarantee is posted at the beginning of the contract. For there to be the contract going forward, you have to satisfy me that, yes, on this day, 1st of January, I'm handing over my assets to you. Where is my demand guarantee? The person or the company gives it to you, and then you can proceed to do due diligence. And that is exactly what happened. You can't do due diligence on something that does not exist.
So you went ahead to hand over our property to PDS. You are saying that when you have not done the background checks to be sure and authenticate information that has been given you, and you think that that is normal?
Mr. Chairman, that is absolutely normal. And I think the lawyers, you call it, you can help me.
Well, you said nobody can help you. Mic is off.
Presumption of regularity. It is presumed that the document that is being given to you is correct. Then you proceed to do your due diligence. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Who was the transaction advisor in this PDS ECG agreement?
I believe it was IFC, Mr. Chairman.
Is it a Ghanaian company?
No, International Finance Corporation. That's a World Bank affiliate, Mr. Chairman.
And do they have an office here?
Yes, I believe so, yes.
Are you aware whether they have advised government on any other thing apart from this PDS ECG?
I'm not aware. And in any case, they were not chosen by government. They were chosen by the Millennium Challenge Corporation.
That's media.
No, they're two different things. MCC.
MCC, yeah.
Yes, that's different, not media.
Mr. Chairman, earlier he was asked about the solar panel as a way of using renewable energy to conserve the excessive use of this thermal and hydro. And I remember he was once the chair of our Committee on Mines and Energy. And there was this program by the Ministry of Energy to use solar in the Ministry of Energy itself, try to get it to schools, hospitals, government buildings as a way of promoting solar energy usage in the country. Where are we with this program?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, the ministry has put solar panels on its rooftop, which is augmenting our usage of power currently. The Jubilee House is almost complete, about 85, 90% completion. Um, I don't know if you've been there recently. They've installed new car parks on which the panels have been put. It's almost 1 megawatt. And the next will be the Parliament House. That was my belief whilst I was in office, that once Jubilee House is complete, you come to Parliament House before other institutions are considered. But I believe when my minister came here, he said something like 2 megawatts is being piloted at the University of Ghana, I seem to recall. So this is part of that program which was rolled out, Mr. Chairman.
Do you have a tentative timetable or program that you are pursuing? Maybe secondary schools, you are hoping to get secondary school by this time, hospital maybe by that time. Is there the ministry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe it's moving on smoothly, but like always, funds has been a bit of a drawback, but it's ongoing, albeit slowly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, earlier he was asked about waste to energy, and like I said, he was talking about cost. I don't know whether in determining saying it's expensive, you factored in the cost of managing this waste by the state, the devastation that we get from this waste during rainy season, the flooding, and all the other inconveniences that this waste creates. Is it that you factored this cost and it's still very expensive to turn this waste into energy?
Exactly so, Mr. Chairman. Exactly. The municipal waste, collection of municipal waste, and the rest, it really does add up the cost of generating power from waste. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, earlier he was asked about this rural electrification, and I heard him say MP should stop putting pressure for new projects to come on. I thought, and I knew for a fact, he as chair then of Mines and Energy, almost all these rural electrification projects, that comes. It comes with a loan, it comes with a program, it comes with timelines, and the scope of the work. Is that right?
That's correct.
So
Chairman,
when you were asked, can you give us time that you think those in Bulisa, is it Bulisa North, could get their stored rural electrification projects completed? You said you cannot give them, but that contract has timelines.
that contract, a turnkey project, came before the House. The House gave approval. But I said, like I said earlier, there's been some challenges with Sinosure, the insurance company that guarantees the Chinese investment in, at least in this country. That is where I alluded to the fact that the Ministry of Finance currently, I do know, is talking to the Chinese in the hope of ironing out all the difficulties. And it's stalled, in fact. It's stalled other turnkey projects. The phase 2 of China Water, the Ashanti Western Eastern Volta, and I think Brahmaful regions of 500 odd communities, that has been stalled. And I do believe the company has used part of its own resources to import some of the materials so that they can at least start something. So that is where we are right now. The problem with the Sinosure has really put a dampener on most of these turnkey projects, which mainly are Chinese origin.
Mr. Chairman, I'm worried about the use of Sinosure. Remember, sometime this week in the chamber, the Minister for Health was also talking about Sinosure. But I know for the Sinosure insurance issues are for projects that are yet to start. Has it also affected ongoing projects? Because those insurance have already been issued, isn't it?
No, it's, Mr. Chairman, it's affected the release of funds. That is where the challenge is, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, last one. On the board of Bui Authority. I was surprised when you said you didn't know that 8 instead of 9 members were appointed. Did I get it right? Or
Said VRA, not Bui. That's a point of correction, Mr. Chairman. The honorable member actually said VRA.
oh, sorry. He said VRA. Okay. So, and you are not, you said you didn't know that they were 8 instead of 9.
How am I supposed to know that, Mr. Chairman?
Because the
I
power
don't-
sector is under you. You are the deputy minister in charge. So all the agencies working under that sector, they are supposed to be reporting to you. Unless they're in charge in your ministry doesn't mean that they report to you. And therefore you don't get to know anything that they are doing. Because if you are in charge, even when they are appointing those persons, yes, your minister may sign the letters, but you'll be present when they are being sworn in.
Mr. Chairman, I honestly didn't know that there were 8 instead of 9 members on the board of VRA. I mean, that assertion, I don't even know how true it is. So I would crave your indulgence to permit me to check if I get the opportunity. And if the committee so requires, I can report back to you. But as I'm sitting here, I am really not aware that 8 instead of 9 members are on that board. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
How many members are supposed to be on the ECG board?
Mr. Chairman, I am not aware.
You don't know the number of the board membership of ECG?
Mr. Chairman, there are 18 agencies under the ministry. If I were to sit here and tell you that I know
I'm
all
just
the
talking about those that work under the power sector.
9,
But that's where
nine agencies under the power sector. And really, it's not, there's too many things to do than to go asking how many members of the board. I don't sign the letters. This is no big deal.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. We have spent nearly 2 hours, or a little over 2 hours. So I'll just ask you one question. In reaction to the question relating to the finances of Gradeco ECG, the suggestion was that they appear to be financially unhealthy. Is there a reason why they charge Ghanaians for the services they provide, but they are unhealthy? Do you know?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the monies that's supposed to go to Gridco is nearly not enough for the investment that they're supposed to embark on. The same with ECG. When my minister appeared before this august committee, I recall he said that even if all collections are made to ECG, it will not be enough to match the revenue and the expenditure. So that is where we are. The question is, are we prepared as a nation to bear the cost, an increase in the tariff for all of us? That is the question.
In effect, you're saying that indeed what we pay is not sufficient to cover the cost.
Exactly so, Mr.
That's
Chairman.
my problem, why we are not able to tell Ghanaians that, yes, the cost of producing power is this much, but we know it is expensive, so we charge you this much lower. So we know that truly, it's not that somebody has taken the money and has chopped it. We should be open about the things where my real problem is in our governance system, we pretend that government is like a tree dropping money from the skies or collecting money from the skies. Anyway, thank you very much for attending upon the House to answer questions. You will hear from us again. Thank you.
Thank you, members of the committee.
mpa etia. Obanyansa fuso wo bunubia won kana asem. Ze ma futu sam kakre wa asupeme. Yo kofi oh my woman.
Osei Asare.
Swear by Almighty God
I, Abna Osei Asare, swear by Almighty God
that the evidence I shall give before this committee
that the evidence I shall give before this committee
touching the matter in issue shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
So help me God.
Very well. Yes. Honorable Abna Osei, you have been nominated to the same position as you were the last Parliament. You are a member of this House. This is your third term as a member of Parliament. In the past, when you do 3 terms, they say you're Mugabe. You have appeared before this committee previously, and indeed, on so many occasions while we are considering the nomination of others, you have come to sit with us. So you're quite well known at this committee. We've seen your CV, we've worked with you. Is there anything especially interesting that you wish to tell us about yourself?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, aside the qualifications on my CV of me being a chartered accountant, of me having a master's degree in development finance, and me working with Ministry of Finance in the last term of the Kufuor government, I bring to the table very good relationship that I have formed over the years. One with my God, two with my colleagues, the Ministry of Finance, sorry, and my constituents as well. Because I believe that aside the qualifications that I have on paper, to get the work done, you need to build very good relationships. And so that is what I bring, in addition to all the qualifications that I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very well. Yes.
Chairman, to join you in congratulating our colleague, the Honorable Abner Asari, for her nomination to be Deputy Minister for Finance. You were there until 6th January midnight. What was your specific role? Were you assigned any role by the minister as Deputy Minister?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I was assigned as the Deputy Minister in charge of budget to assist the Minister of Finance in implementing the nation's budget.
At the end of 2020, what was the performance of our budget in terms of fiscal deficits?
Mr. Chairman, when we brought the 2020 budget to Parliament, we were hoping to do a deficit of below 5%. And then in March 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic hit. So we had to come to Parliament to adjust that. And so by close of day, or in December 2020, yes, we did a little over 11%.
11.6%, is that accurate?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, the IMF now reports a fiscal deficit of 15.5%. Is that accurate?
No, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, what we brought to Parliament in the 2021 budget is what I have mentioned. And we always stated that the deficit does not include our energy sector debts and the financial sector debt as well, because we believe that it is not a continuous item. It's one-off that we are trying to...
So who is likely to shoulder the burden of those debts? The energy sector debt and the financial sector clean-up debt. Who is likely to shoulder that?
Mr. Chairman, we always report that. But like I said, because it's a one-off item, and we are hoping that with time, we will be able to get a hold of the total cost involved and then be able to clear that one. So that is why we always make a distinction between the deficit with, without the financial sector and the energy sector.
I just want to appreciate from the nominee whether it's a matter of misclassification or whether it's a matter of a paradigm shift in our reporting on our finances to Parliament. You incur a debt of over 21 billion or 23 billion for banking sector cleanup. You have an energy sector debt of about 6.7 billion Ghana cedis, which is added to your deficit by the IMF. And in Article 4, as you are aware, they come to meet you and report a fiscal deficit of 15.5%. Yes, you reported to Parliament 11.1%. I'm seeking from you, who will bear the burden of the financial sector cleanup? Is it the Ghanaian taxpayer? Who will bear the burden of the energy sector debt?
Is it the Ghanaian taxpayer? And will you construe that to include a wholesale definition of our public debt? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, our public debts include the energy sector debts and the financial sector debt as well. But in stating the deficit, we always make it clear that these are one-off. Hitherto, we were not reporting, we did not have this financial sector arrears or debts, and we did not have the energy sector debts as well. These are new items that have come on board. So it is a matter of classification, and consistently, we have said that this is how we present our accounts. Yes, the IMF may have their reasons for presenting it the way it is, but Mr. Chairman, it is part and parcel of our debts.
So is the IMF wrong? Are they wrong? Is the IMF wrong?
Mr. Chairman, it is a matter of classification and style, but provided we are doing the right thing by reporting it, and we have never failed to tell Ghanaians the quantum of the financial sector debt or the energy sector debts. We make it clear every time, so it is part of our total debt
Except that
cost.
you don't add it up, you leave it in the appendix. Is that the understanding? So the IMF is now saying that add it up as part of the public debt. Are they wrong with their approach?
Mr. Chairman, it is a matter of classification, and that is how we have classified our items consistently. And so that is the approach. But currently, as we speak, this is how we show these items in our books. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chair, with your leave, Honorable, so in other words, you disagree as a matter of principle with the IMF approach?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this is how we prepare our chart of accounts and our finances. And we have the IMF also saying that in their own way, this is how they want to classify things. They might be right from where they are coming from, but this is Ghana, and this is how we classify our chart of accounts. This is how we want to classify our debts. And I think it is acceptable. It is acceptable internationally, but this is how they want to do this. But we always, what I say is that we have never hidden any information. We put everything bare on the table. It's just that we make a distinction between the total debts less the financial service debt and the energy sector debt as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So the approach is just the source of disagreement. That's it.
Yeah. Are you done, Deputy Leader?
I said, so is the approach, which is the source of disagreement?
I wouldn't say a disagreement, but a way of reporting.
Whatever it is, Ghana has debt to pay in the energy sector, and Ghana has debt to pay.
Mr. Chairman, every country has as well.
No, but specific. I'm specific for a banking sector clean up and for an energy sector debt. Now, reading through your CV, may I, Chairman, with respect, refer the nominee. You serve as director on SNIT, is that right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, there are pensioners and the SNIT are complaining. One, about investment of their money by SNIT, and two, payment of lump sum, and three, computation of past credit, that the institution is not fair to them. And you know, post-retirement is the most challenging for every person in Ghana, in particular for aged persons who now have all kinds of ailments that their income are not able to support them. Has this been brought to the attention of the SNIT board?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, let me go over your question again. One, the investment of their money at SNIT, computation of past credits, and there was a third one, please.
You respond to that too as we go on.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman,
Payment of lump sum. Lump sum. You know, just to put you in context, after the passage of Act 766, the Pensions Act, there was a moratorium of 10 years, which was further extended to 5 years. When SNIT commenced payment of it, there's been some number of complaints. I just want to know whether that, at that level, since you are director, whether those matters have been brought to fore and what you are doing to resolve them.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, matters of pension is dear to our hearts because you know that one day you would also be in that position. And so you need to do it and do it well. Yes, it's been brought to our attention concerning the past credits. And a committee was set up and some work has been done. And Mr. Chairman, we are hoping to resolve this issue with the various unions as soon as possible. And payment of the lump sum, Mr. Chairman, you know there's a formula to this. And if for some reason pensioners feel they need to be shown how these things are arrived at for them to know that it is actually a formula. It's not something that we can sit and decide that this is what we are giving to them, but there's a basis for arriving at the lump sum. And we continuously engage them. When I say we, I mean SNIT continuously engage them. So I believe that if there are any uncertainties in this area, I mean, we will take it up, as in SNIT will take it up and make sure, I mean, they explain things to them properly. And you also mentioned the investments of pensioners' money by SNIT. Mr. Chairman, from 2017 to 2020, when we inherited the position as directors at SNIT, we realized that, well, they had made certain investments that were not yielding enough returns as it was supposed to be. And so we helped SNIT restructure their investments in a way that we believe moving forward will help them yield some form of income or interest that will benefit the pensioner. So we are still on it. I cannot say that we have concluded, but it's something ongoing, and I believe that together we can help.
I want to find out from the nominee, are there any new investments that you are aware of? You took part in board meetings to make some recommendations on some new investment. Is that the case?
Mr. Chairman, I can't remember it on top of my head, but as much as possible, we looked at existing investments.
You've not been in a board meeting where the board took decisions to invest? Is that why you are reporting to this committee? Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chairman, what I'm saying is that we had some existing investments, and for some we
Chairman,
needed...
my question is specific. New investment between 2017 and 2020. Were there new investments by SNIT? Did you participate in any of those meetings for the purpose of recommending new investment for better investment returns? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The pensions or the monies that we receive on behalf of our people are supposed to be invested in very fruitful ventures. And so it is likely, it is possible that, yes, some form of investments were done. And so I cannot say that throughout the 4 years, we did not invest in anything that will yield very good income or interest for the pensioners.
It is likely. It means that you cannot speak to that fact yourself.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
So, Director, can only know that the institution likely invested. I've taken note of it. You are Director of National Health Insurance Authority. What's the state of their financing at end of year 2020, December? National Health Insurance Authority. What's the state of their finances? Is it in coma?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, as I speak to you now, I know that NHIA is doing very well in terms of claims payment. They have paid claims of up to December 2020. Usually, the claims are 3 to 6 months in arrears, depending on when the claims are received and processed. And so I know they are doing well. But again, I know that government is supposed to continue to assist them. And there are some outstanding liabilities that we need to defray to give to NHI.
Does the authority owe service providers?
Mr. Chairman, once an agency engages in several activities, in one way or the other, they might owe one or two suppliers. Let's say if it's a construction, until it is completed, you cannot say you wouldn't owe. Once they raise
are you able to share the level of indebtedness of the authority with us? The state of the National Health Insurance Authority indebtedness. You have an idea as director of it?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have specific figures to it, but I know that we owe them some amount of money.
Will you say it's substantial or is manageable? Have some bonds been issued for them to the best of your knowledge as Deputy Minister for Finance?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Last year, that's 2020, some bonds were issued to defray some of the liabilities.
Thank you, Chairman. You are director of ADB too. What's the state of ADB? We hear debate of a new development bank. What's happened to ADB? What's government doing? I haven't worked as Deputy Minister
Mr. Chairman,
of Finance
government continues to support ADB, and currently ADB is on its feet and is assisting government in the agribusiness sector.
Chairman, I want to find out from the nominee, did government promise that it will make some allocation to ADB to improve their capitalization and standing in terms of liquidity? Are you aware of that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, government did that through the GATS, Ghana Amalgamated Trust Fund. And so government supported ADB in that regard to boost its capitalization.
All right, that's noted. Trade facilitation, you should be interested in matters of revenue. How is revenue performing? And I just want to know from you, since you are responsible for budget, compensation as a percentage of revenue and compensation as a percentage of GDP. I've seen some worrying scenarios, including rigidities of the budget, particularly with the statutory funds. You want to share that with the committee? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I think we all need to have a good discussion on revenue to compensation to revenue and then compensation to GDP, because it's something that is dear to our hearts. But I believe that when you look on the face of it, that compensation to revenue is hovering around 54%. But one thing we also fail to look at is what goes to the individual, and whether we also talk about productivity, because I believe that if we want to increase our revenues and to bring compensation to revenue down, then we need to talk about productivity, what we can do to increase productivity so that it can increase our revenue for compensation to revenue to come down. And Mr. Chairman, I think we should all be concerned about how to do it. When you look at our peers in the ECOWAS region, their compensation to revenues around 35%, and ours is around 50%. And so we need to do something about it. And what we need to do about is to help the private sector thrive. And as the private sector thrives, we will be able to generate more revenue. Once we generate more revenue, the numbers can come down.
Chairman,
And we'll
it's
also be in the
appreciated.
position to pay our workers better.
Chairman, I didn't study accounting, so debit the receiver. Oh, who helped her? Chairman. I want help from the Honorable Abner, not you, Chairman, but for every debit entry,
There is a credit entry somewhere.
thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I serve on the Employment Committee with the Honorable Abner, and in terms of focus, she is interested in the job that she does, and particularly the work of our committee. But conspicuously lost in this year's budget statement was any indication from government on necessary adjustment to the minimum wage and to the public sector wage. Any special reason for that? It's unusual. Since 2014, 15, and 16, we've always negotiated, completed it to allow for the Ministry of Finance to plan, which has been hailed by the World Bank. I have an annual report of Ghana's expenditure plan that the World Bank reviewed from 2014, I believe, to end of 2016. There's a new publication. I haven't read that yet. Any special reason why government was conspicuously silent on wages?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, yes, we are aware that we should always conclude negotiations by April of the current year to take effect from the ensuing year. Mr. Chairman, we began the wage negotiation somewhere in February 2020, and then in March we witnessed the lockdown and the effects of the pandemic. And you recall that we had to come to Parliament to amend the targets that we had set for 2020. There was so much uncertainty in 2020, and coupled with the effects of the pandemic, Mr. Chairman, we could not conclude negotiations in 2020 for 2021. But as we speak, Mr. Chairman, we have engaged, we have commissioned the technical committee. They have come out with their reports, and government has met. The tripartite committee, I know, has met. That's the unions, employers, and government. They have met, and I believe that they are almost at the near end of wage negotiations.
So you assure us that the tripartite is meeting to make a determination of the minimum wage, and
yes,
the public
Mr. Chairman.
sector joint negotiating committee is also meeting to look at the wages.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, as we speak, I know there's a meeting of the tripartite today to conclude on the minimum wage, and I know that once they conclude on the minimum wage, the base pay would also, they will also start negotiations for the base pay.
You were in Geneva with the committee on ILO and decent work. Ghana, you are still talking about decent, they are talking about decent wages. Ghana, you are still talking about minimum wages. When do you think we'll be there?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. That is what I said, that is a conversation we should all have, that as much as possible, we together can decide to increase productivity. Once we increase productivity, I believe that the wages that we pay our people will be not just a living wage, but will be a wage that will be commensurate for
Chairman, I
work
should
done.
be ending it so that our colleagues can have a bite. But back to national health insurance, there are complaints of discriminatory payments. Discrimination in payment of service providers. You pick and choose. That's the accusation. What will you say to that charge? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a director, we do not get ourselves involved in the day-to-day running of the agency. It is up to management, to do these things. And so if now that it's been brought to my attention, I can also pass on the information to the CEO for them to look at it. But for us, we take the decisions and the management implements those decisions. So thank you for bringing
The
this to my
board
attention.
should be interested in it, and you
Yes,
should
Mr.
demand
Chairman.
to know which category of persons have been paid over the years, which category have been outstanding, in order that you ensure fairness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I see that you see that I should give space, so I yield.
Yes, Honorable Patrick Bama.
Thank you very much, MP. See, I don't know, started drinking water too early. Hey, it's too early for 2 bottles of water. Honorable nominee. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The people of Adaswase are proud of you.
Thank you.
Minister, contractors in Ghana, you are in charge of budget. Am I right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
You were in charge.
Yes, I
You are
was.
confirming to the committee that you were in charge of budget.
Yes, Mr. Chairman,
That
from
was your-
2017 to 2020.
That was a big portfolio. So you were in charge, and contractors were crying for payments, releases. Yes, doctors, nurses, everybody, contractors. So what has accounted for that?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, consistently, government has increased the budget allocation to Ministry of Roads, and especially in years that government designated those years as years of, year of roads. Government really increased the budget, and government made sure that what was in the budget was paid to these road contractors. Mr. Chairman, I know that there are quite a number of activities competing for this same revenue that we earn. We believe that if we continue to increase our revenues as it's supposed to, we will be in a better position to help our contractors. And again, the way road construction is, we need to start talking about very innovative ways of funding these road contracts, so that as much as possible, consistently, there will be monies in there to be paying as and when they submit their IPCs. But I know government has done very well. When you compare from 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, the budget for Ministry of Roads keeps increasing. And any other support that government is able to give in that sector, government does it as well.
Oh, I can understand why Honorable Amakwata has most of his roads fixed and that of your constituency. No problem. Atiwa East and West, no problem. You are talking about funds. Do we have funds for Government Agenda 111 project?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, in the budget, government put in some monies for the Agenda 111.
Budget, which page? Which page?
Just a minute, please.
Minister, which page?
Mr. Chairman, page 252, government put about 4.5 billion for COVID-related expenditure, and that also includes the Agenda 111 in there. So it is part of the 4.5 billion government put in the budget. Thank you.
Minister, let me take you to the Constitution.
That should be your last question.
Oh, Chairman. You are protecting colleague, and I don't.
Honorable, you are lucky that I've overlooked about 4 questions that you have asked previously. So take your last one.
Very well. Minister, this is a general question on the central bank. I've decided to go to the Supreme Court because for years we haven't seen the budget of the Bank of Ghana. The last time we met with GMPC, transfer charges alone that the central bank took from GMPC amounted to $14.6 million. Yet they cover themselves with that independent cloak. And I think it's about time that we test the law on their activities, because you and I haven't seen the budget of the central bank. If you look at the Constitution, it talks about their functions, the functions of the governor, their biannual reports on foreign exchange receipts, and the report that the Auditor General is supposed to bring to Parliament for a debate. And also, if Parliament, the Parliament per Article 184(4), Parliament shall debate the report of the Auditor General and appoint, where necessary, in the public interest, a committee to deal with any matters arising from the Auditor General's report on the central bank. What is your view on the fact that the budget of the Bank of Ghana has never been cited by the Parliament of Ghana?
Thank you very much. I think the Constitution is clear, and the Constitution has given Parliament the mandate to do that. So if for any reason Parliament wants to view the activities or the budget of Bank of Ghana, a committee can be set up to do that. But yes, we respect their independence, because there are other independent institutions. And you also mentioned that the Auditor General audits the Bank of Ghana, so that if there's anything that they need to bring to your attention, we will see that in the Auditor General's reports that they submit to Parliament every year.
You are encouraging me to go to the Supreme Court. Is that okay?
Please don't answer that one. He announced that he is going to Supreme Court. You are not doing anything. Yes, Honorable Zosia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Congratulations once again, Honorable Nominee.
Thank you very much, Honorable.
In your answer to an earlier question, you indicated that for the year of roads, you actually increased budgetary allocation to that sector, but that is not supported by provisions in Appendix 4 of page 224 of the 2020 budget. When you look at that appendix, for the first year of roads, the budgetary allocation was 1 million, and I think 1,201 million Ghana cedis. But for the second year of roads, strangely, the allocation is 917 million, a little bit above that. So that is a clear reduction in allocation to the second year of roads. Can you kindly clarify that? Why that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, for the first year of roads was in 2020. And in 2020, their total budget was 4.2. When I say their total budget includes goods and services compensation and capital expenditure. The actual payments years was 4.8 billion. And in 2021, their budget was 3.92. But Mr. Chairman, you would bear with me that 2021 is a very peculiar year. Right after COVID, we are now trying to recover. So every ministry, department, and agency did witness some reduction in its budgets. So when you compare this to the total funding that was available for disbursement, This is a very high amount of 3.9 billion.
Mr. Chairman, what you just said, unfortunately, is also not supported by the allocation to Office of Government Machinery. And I've made this point almost to almost every nominee in the space that came before this committee, because when you look at the allocation to Office of Government Machinery, between 2020 and 2021, it increased by 504.85%. Now, when you look at it carefully, the staff strength at the Office of Government Machinery has reduced, and some of the ministries have been scraped off the office. So it's quite strange that even though you reduce the staff strength at the Office of Government Machinery, the budgetary allocation is increasing. And that is also contrary to what you just said with regards
Thank
to
you
roads.
very much,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this is not contrary. When you compare the number of agencies that were aligned to Office of Government Machinery in 2020, and you compare same, you realize that the number of agencies aligned for 2021 has gone up. In 2020, we did not have NAPCO under Office of Government Machinery. NAPCO's budget alone is close to $1 billion. And so when you see NAPCO under Office of Government Machinery and the allocation has gone up, when you see, Office of Government Machinery's allocation going up, go into the details and look one by one. You realize that some agencies have been aligned to Office of Government Machinery. And we also have NEIP, which my friend, my brother here used to head. That one has also gone to Office of Government Machinery. MASLOG has gone to Office of Government Machinery. There are a couple of things, items or agencies that have gone in there. So on the face of it, you would think that we have increased the budget allocation for Office of Government Machinery. But when you go into the details, you realize that there were some agencies that were not aligned to Office of Government Machinery in 2020, but have been aligned in 2021 as a result of the restructuring of things. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I also want to find out your view on this matter. I think it's been said on different platforms that your government is a better manager of the economy. And I find that a bit contrary to some reports I read. Particularly, I looked at the Index of Economic Freedom and looked at the Global Gender Gap Index, that is issued by the World Economic Forum. And then you look at the Ease of Business ranking. All these reports are saying something contrary to the assertion that you are better managers of the economy. So, for example, the Index of Economic Freedom indicates that government obtained an average score of 57.28 for the period between 2017 and 2020, and as compared to the average score of 78.63 between 2013 and 2016. Then again, when you look at the Global Gender Gap Index, you would realize that government last year obtained a rank of 107 on a score of 0.67. And that is compared to 2016 figures, where the government obtained 59th on a score of 0.71, which means that under your watch, the gender disparity is increasing in terms of economic activities. And then the ease of doing business also ranking is also not looking good. How do you reconcile this with the assertion that you are better managers of the economy?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, yes, we are. We are better managers of the economy. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic hitting this country, we had stabilized the economy. Inflation was almost a single digit, and things were going well until 2020 March when the pandemic hit. And Mr. Chairman, when you look at all that my brother has raised, you realize that when the pandemic hit, things really changed. Women were more hit than men because women engaged more in economic activities like the selling of things. You know all these things, that women directly were hit. So certainly, when these indicators are being taken, yes, you will see some disparities in there because the COVID-19 pandemic really affected women more than the men, because women engaged more in the day-to-day economic activities directly compared to the men. And this also affected the way businesses were done. Businesses quickly had to reinvent themselves to do more of the Zooming and all the other IT technology stuff before they could even arrive at solutions or meetings or meets and all those things. So, Mr. Chairman, all these things is not as a result of, it is not anybody's fault, but the COVID pandemic hit and really changed things, and it took time for businesses to adjust. I believe that moving forward, with the preliminary assessments that we have done, I know the dynamics will change, but it will take some time because we still haven't really gotten a hold of the total effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. But I believe that we will get there and things will improve. Thank you.
The very last one, which is something I'm sure maybe you could take responsibility for, because for COVID, it's obvious that it's difficult to pin the effect of COVID on any individual or institution. But issues of corruption are things that I'm sure the government can take responsibility for. According to the Community Development Alliance, corrupt practices swallowed about $2.1 billion COVID cash. Now, apart from that, when you look at the 2019 Auditor General's report, the unaccounted funds from 2017 to 2019 for public boards, corporations, and other statutory institutions amounted to 20 billion cedis. Given the fact that you have responsibility over budgets, what do you propose to be the way to deal with these corrupt practices so we don't keep losing money that belongs to the state in this manner?
Thank you very much, but I disagree with the assertion that a 2.1 billion COVID cash was lost to corruption.
Actually,
you know, COVID and its effects, in many instances, usually with procurement, there can be exceptions when it comes to a matter of urgency or there's an emergency. And so maybe if you can be specific with the corrupt practices that is being leveled against. But I want to assure you that every money that Parliament approved for us for COVID expenditure can be accounted for, and for some it has been accounted for. In 2020, Parliament approved about 11.1 billion for us. We have spent 8.3 billion, which we have accounted for. And in 2021, in the mid-year, you would also see some level of accounting, or in the monies that were approved for us, provided we have spent those monies. So I just want to clear the air that concerning the COVID funds that Parliament approved for us, we have up-to-date reports on how we have spent the monies that were approved for us.
As a follow-up.
And then you also mentioned...
Chairman, just a follow-up. Minister nominee, are you aware that government and the World Bank and the Article 4 revision meetings agreed to an audit of the COVID expenditure, an audit of it, arising out of some of the issues that the Honorable Sosu have raised?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, consistently, every year, the Auditor General audits all ministries, departments, and agencies. So if for any reason a special fund has been set and they want to audit these funds. I think it is in the right direction that we do all these things to make sure that we followed protocols and everything was done right. So that does not cause any problem for IMF and government to agree that they want to go ahead and audit the COVID funds. I think it's in line with proper accountability and transparency.
So the follow-up that I was, just to clarify the point that according to the corruption risk report by the Community Development Alliance, they made references to procurement breaches. So it's more of money's loss as a result of procurement breaches.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, with some of these things, you look at the procurement law, you go to the procurement law, were there breaches and under what conditions were these procurements made? And so, yes, we make the rules, but at the same time, we also need to look at things. We always make exceptions in these rules, and sometimes when you make exceptions in some situations like the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's still within the law, I think you haven't dealt or indulged in any corrupt practices. Thank you.
Very well. Yes, Ms. Ejare.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Honorable nominee, congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Government lately is telling us that it wants to open a development bank in Ghana. Meanwhile, government owns a lot of banks in Ghana that it can restructure to serve the same purpose. Why is it the need to have a new development bank altogether?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, as part of revitalizing the economy as a result of the effects of COVID-19 pandemic, government is doing a couple of things. And in that is the National Development Bank. Mr. Chairman, the National Development Bank is not a regular bank or the regular retail banks that we have in the system. Government is doing everything possible to support NIB, ADB, to make sure the purpose for which they were set up is realized. But this National Development Bank is going to act as a bank to give capital to these commercial banks. It is not the usual commercial banks that you see around, but it's going to give funding give funding to these banks to enable them carry out their activities at a minimum cost. So this is not the regular banking that we know, but it's rather going to strengthen and give access to capital for these banks to thrive.
Anyway, that's why I was thinking one could be restructured to serve the purpose. Anyways, now to bread and butter issues. No, this is more bread and butter, straight bread and butter. My checks at the Ministry of Finance indicate that you are also responsible for school feeding. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And school feeding is usually in the news for all the bad reasons, which include non-payment of caterers not cooking because the money is not enough, not being paid on time, they owe people and all of that stuff. We know that school feeding actually helps children to go to school. It is a great incentive for especially people in the rural communities, where you think that in the rural communities there are a lot of food. It's not correct. In the rural communities, people find food difficult, when especially we are in the lean season and things like that. And the school feeding program is a great motivation why children go to school. What is the state of school feeding now?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I can't agree with my colleague more because I also have school feeding in my area, and I have seen how the numbers have gone up because we have increased the number of school feeding in Etiwa East constituency. And I share your plight. It is something that the current gender minister has formed an interministerial committee to look at the issues at the school feeding and come up with recommendations that we believe will help reduce the issues that we have at school feeding. One, you mentioned non-caterer payments, and some of these things, Mr. Chairman, it is difficult. But I believe that once we conclude on these audits, the recommendations will come out, and then we will work with the recommendations. And I believe that we will find a solution to the current situation at the school feeding secretariat or school feeding program. But I must say that government has done very well for the school feeding program, because in 2016 we had about 1.6 million students or pupils on the school feeding program. But as we speak, we have close to 3.4 million children on the school feeding program. And government knows the importance of the school feeding program, and so we'll do everything possible to make sure that this program succeeds. And for us, from the Ministry of Finance, we also make sure that we give the right budgetary allocation to enable the school feeding also fulfill its mandate. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, great. But 3.4 and still counting, because there are a lot of communities in need of school feeding program. I take you to your CV. It is not numbered, so the portion that deals with your leadership positions, Director SNIT, Director National Health Insurance Authority. So item 5. You seem to be the answer to the plight of private health providers. They contend that, as you have said here, that national health insurance is doing well because it is only in 6 months arrears. Very beautiful. But when you go to SNIT, where you are also a director, they are supposed to pay every 30 days. But it gets to a point that the national health insurance owe them 6 months. They also owe SNIT 6 months, and they are paying penalty on it. What can you do to reconcile this so that these health service providers are not overburdened as a result of delayed payment from national health insurance? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, we also need to look at the processes for which they submit their claims. And because before SNIT works and pays for these things, you need to submit the claims. And I must be honest with you, sometimes, before NHIL works on these things, they need to submit the claims. Sometimes it's difficult because they don't have any claims from these hospitals. It takes quite some time for them to raise these claims. But when they come in, they have processing centers where they fast-track these claims. And like you mentioned, it's become a problem because SNIT also will have to charge penalties for late payment of their SNIT benefits. So it is something we will look into. But I believe that consistently, this NHI is doing well, and provided the claims are submitted, they are paid. I know that currently they are working on January, February claims, and I will entreat them to pay more attention to the private providers, since they also have to pay SNIT, their workers' SNIT benefits. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That will be all for her. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Biama.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations, Honorable Nominee. I first want to ask about taxation. During the first term of President Akufo-Addo, a number of taxes were removed. Now, a few ones have been introduced. What's your general comment on this situation?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It is true that in the first term of the President, His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, we said we were moving from taxation to production. Mr. Chairman, we did, and we saw some results. Mr. Chairman, in 2020, we all know the effects of the COVID pandemic. We had to come to Parliament to revise our revenue numbers by 13.1 billion, and rather increase our expenditures by 11.1 billion. And in doing that, we had a gap of about 25 close to 25 billion to fill. The COVID hasn't left us yet. We are still trying to assess the full effect of the COVID-19 pandemic. But in order for government to be able to continue with its programs and policies, and also take on the burden of the COVID-19 expenditures that it has to incur because the COVID hasn't left us, government had to do this by seeking our permission for us to share in the burden of raising some amount of revenue to help government attend to these very important policies and programs in its budget. And I believe that for some of them, we mentioned that it is subject to review after a period of time. But we are happy to continue to engage all of us to see how best we can all support government to mobilize revenue to address the situation that we currently have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable nominee, my next question will be on the efforts your ministry has made towards addressing this issue of ghost names on our payroll.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Mr. Chairman, in the beginning, we were asked about our compensation to revenue. And I talked about increasing our productivity level. But there are some things that we believe that we can also do to reduce the expenditure. And so that is why the ministry has worked on a system called the Human Resource Management and Information System. This system is such that until your biometric data and details have been taken and put on the system, you cannot be said to be a government worker who would receive pay. So this has reduced drastically the names of those who are not supposed to be there but have found their way there. And again, there's a system where we check supervisors, validate employees at their various places of work every month before payment is done. So this, with some of the work that the Auditor General also did, has really supported and reduced or eliminated some of the ghost names that we find.
Nominee.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
You use the word drastically. Kindly explain. What percentage have you taken out on the payroll? When is it drastically? If you have given us some numbers or percentages to judge how drastic it is.
Mr. Chairman, we have seen some levels of efficiency in there, and the numbers on these so-called names have gone down, but I cannot give an exact percentage. So maybe let me say that I take out the drastic and say that we have seen some drop in that area. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Related to this, how do you respond to, maybe I would say, rumors that there will be no salary increase for the next 3 years?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, that is absolutely false. And that is why I shared with the committee what the Tripartite Committee is doing. The Tripartite Committee is the committee that is supposed to come up with the minimum wage once the minimum wage is announced, and then we will look at the base pay. And consistently, government shares the plight of workers, and government knows that we will have to see some adjustments in our wages and salaries. And so I believe that before the end of June, we should see us completing or concluding the minimum wage and, God willing, the base pay as well. So it is not true that we are freezing wage levels for the next 3 years. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very well. Yes, Honorable.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Honorable nominee, who is not my friend, I want us to have a conversation that the chairman wanted to perhaps have yesterday about borrowing and how we have all contributed to the understanding of borrowing, the general public understanding of borrowing. Mr. Chairman, the former president was berated for borrowing so much, former President John Dramani Mahama, by the current vice president, that at a point, he had to respond by saying, we have not borrowed to drink or make merry. And I have a publication by my journal line 7 years ago that reads in part, contrary to Dr. Mahmoud Baume's recent red flag about the country's rising debt situation, President Mahama has said it is necessary for the state to keep borrowing for key infrastructural developments. We did not borrow to drink or to eat. We borrowed to bring facilities such as electricity and water to the people of Ghana. And then it goes on to even list some of the projects in many parts of the country. Now, you are also quoted recently to have said on an Accra-based Class FM that, quote, if you are borrowing for things that can pay for itself, in the end, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong, unquote. Well, it's not just you who has come around to this point. The vice president himself, who was leading the chorus, has this to say: we will continue to borrow. Dr. Baumia. Now, the part of the story says, he says, quote, I know that the GDP ratio has gone up to 68.9%. And mind you, at the time he was criticizing, it was less than 40%. And I have heard the IMF too, and what they are saying. So we can look at who is projecting what. But if you look at a country like Japan, its debt to GDP is 237%. Italy is 135%. Singapore is 126%. So will you, for instance, say Japan is HIPIC, unquote? So making justification for why we have to continue borrowing. Now, the question is, Honorable Nominee, why do we contribute to this state of affairs where borrowing seems to be very, very offensive to the general public, only for us to come around when we are at the helm of affairs, where we need the resources to provide the things that should be provided, we then admit that it is not wrong after all to borrow.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, let me use the 2021 budget as an example. We came to Parliament for Parliament to approve this budget for us. We told Parliament our expenditures was 110 billion. Our revenue, 72.5 billion. So clearly there's a gap. And in that gap, you will have to fill it to enable you meet your expenditure. When you look in there, in the expenditure item, these are things that you need to do to run your country. And so there are two ways. You raise your own revenue or additional revenue through taxes, or you find other innovative ways of filling the gap. And so you borrow, and sometimes you also use tax to raise that gap.
Is that, sorry, Mr. Chairman, is that like reducing governance to just borrowing and taxation?
It is not reducing governance to just borrowing and taxation. But if you can also bear with me, that you need to continue with the free SHS. You need to continue with the road expansion. You need to continue with the Ghana Cares. You need to continue with the infrastructure that you want to see your people have. And so in this situation, what do? You try as much as possible to borrow amounts that you believe will serve your interests. And whilst borrowing, you need to check to see whether you'll be in a position to service these debts and what the debts is going to, the borrowings are going to be used for. Are they going to be used for items that can best tomorrow pay for itself or not? So you look at all these things before you take the decision to borrow. And we don't borrow in isolation. We always bring it to Parliament. We discuss with Parliament. Parliament approves before we go ahead and do that.
Well, the honorable nominee missed my sarcasm when I referred to reducing governance to just borrowing and taxation, because that was the accusation then. But I understand. I just hope that the understanding of the purpose for borrowing, as displayed by you, will continue even if you are not in government someday. But still on borrowing, I have with me the 2019 Consolidated Fund report of the Auditor General on the public accounts of Ghana General Government for the financial year ended 31st December 2019. And on page 9, the Auditor General makes some very interesting, findings. It says avoidable penalty and commitment fees payment on loans. 12. We noted that Government of Ghana continued to incur high cost on penalties and commitment fees, and in 2019 incurred 5,226,605.12 and 33 million Ghana cedis, 68,022.15 cedis as penalties and commitment fees respectively. We reiterate our earlier recommendation for effective monitoring and processing payment ahead of their respective maturity dates. So the burden is not even the debt that has to be paid and the interest that has to be paid, but like the Controller and Accountant General determines, avoidable penalty and commitment fees payment. So we make our bad situation worse by just not monitoring when we are supposed to utilize, some of these loans that we take or make payments of interest. Why is that the case? And what is the ministry doing? And if you are approved, maybe you will continue to do, if there's anything being done, to ensure that this state of affairs does not become the status quo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, first and foremost, we will take into consideration the recommendations of the Auditor General. And I believe it will act as a guiding step, for us to reduce some of these things. And again, with the commitment fee, sometimes it comes with a loan that you need to fulfill some conditions. And sometimes, some of the conditions they require may not be that favorable. So whilst trying to renegotiate those conditions, and sometimes you incur some of these debts. But I will take the recommendations of the Auditor General and also see to it that we reduce delays in payments of some of these things. And when negotiating these loans too, we need to ask for conditions that we believe can best serve our purpose, so that when we have to deliver, we'll deliver on time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We should. 33 million Ghana cedis plus 5 million Ghana cedis, just because we couldn't do things on time, are needless, burdens we have to add to our already existing burden of debts we have to pay. But finally, you were on the board of ADB, right? Agricultural Development Bank, is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I confirmed it earlier.
Okay. So before perhaps your appointment, there was this issue involving a company owned by McDan Group of Companies, where the company had a supply contract with Cocoa Board and was advanced a loan of 10.45 million Ghana cedis. to carry out that supply contract. The minority at the time raised issues with the fact that this was done in the absence of a board for the ADB. How has your board treated this issue since your assumption of office?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, before I got in, I'm happy you said this happened behind us. But before we got in there was an existing board. But I can tell you that as we speak, this has been rectified. And I can say that for a fact that the amounts have been paid. But that is all I can say because I wasn't at that time part of the board. But I know that as we speak, this 10.1 million has been paid back.
Rectified. How was it rectified, and what was there to be rectified?
Mr. Chairman, I do not have those details because you yourself alluded to the fact that I wasn't part of the board. But I know that this has been cleared, so I can take the details and furnish you accordingly.
What you said has been paid. Is that not the rectification? Is that what you mean by has been ratified?
Yes.
Money paid?
He's asking how it was done, and I'm telling him I don't have those details, but what I know is that it's been paid. Yes. Thank you.
Very well. Nothing else there. Yes, leader.
Chairman, we should be winding up on our colleague. But back to Honorable Suhini, and to paraphrase your word, Honorable Abna, there is nothing wrong. Have you now accepted that there is nothing wrong with borrowing based on the Suhini's submission?
Mr. Chairman, it's a quote that is being alluded to me, but what I'm saying is that
Chairman,
when you look at the kind of budgets that
these
we
words are not mine. I record you.
You said a quote.
Yes, from you. You use it today. And in fact, to add you even added, it is nobody's fault, unquote. So, so is it now somebody's fault to
No,
borrow?
Mr. Chairman, I gave a
So
premise.
we hear you. So
I
based on the Honorable Suhini's submission, borrowing, President Mahama borrowed, NDC borrowed, Nana Danko has borrowed. On record, he has borrowed even more, added over 164 billion to the public debt. Is there anything wrong with it?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I don't want to go into so much details, but it is not that we have added 164 billion to the public debt. There's the actual debt that we have accumulated, and then there's also the exchange rate losses that is in there. But like I said, I don't want to go into that. But all I'm saying is that when you manage the kind of economy that we have, where we manage a deficit economy because our expenditures are always more than our revenues, clearly you will need to fill in that gap. And in filling in that gap, you have options. And so sometimes you weigh the options and see what best suits.
Are the options anybody's fault? Chairman, maybe let me put you in context. I'm using your words and appreciate the issue that Honorable Suhini raised. For instance, President Mahama and the NDC at end of year 2016, in terms of annual budget funding amount and earnings from oil revenue, was below 360 million US dollars. You are earning close to 1 billion US dollars. To whom much is given, much is to be expected. Yet you say that he didn't do enough with $260 million. So back to your theory, it is nobody's fault. If oil prices were declining, just like today you are attributing it to COVID, and he attributed it to unstable international economic order. Was it personal to him, or there were existential external factors that compelled him to take those positions? Where do you stand, the Honorable Abna?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the effects of COVID, you can't compare it to any other world economic crisis prior to 2017. And we are still, not just Ghana, the whole world is still assessing the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. So this one is incomparable. I must state. But what we are saying is that we weigh the options, which ones best suits our needs, what we have to do, and then we go in for, for what we have to go in for to settle the deficits.
No, so I'm still on your theory of it's nobody's fault. When prices of gold decline, prices of cocoa is not favorable, it will affect budget projections. You are a key budget officer. If you made projections and against revenue, revenues necessarily will not live up to expectation because of those intervening factors. COVID is the same intervening factor. And I say to your theory, is it somebody's fault?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I also said that the effects of COVID is incomparable. So when you want to put those two side by side, we know the effects of a fall in prices of gold,
but
prices of
changes
oil.
in international economic conditions can also be a factor. Do you admit to that?
It can be a
And
factor,
that can affect
but
revenue?
the weight.
No, I'm not contesting you on weight. In fact, if you want, I'll share even figures with you. Like when you kept emphasizing the effects of women, I've just read a publication that they lost about 800 million. What I don't know is, I've forgotten the sign, whether it was billion or millions, but there's a publication detailed on the impact of COVID on women, and they quote some loss of 800 billion US dollars. So I'm not contesting you on that. I'm simply saying that can your fiscals suffer as a result of unfavorable international economic conditions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, but there are extent to which these things can happen. Thank you.
Your government promised to end the suffering. Have suffering ended in Ghana?
Mr. Chairman, this question is relative. Yes.
Oh, Chairman, I'm quoting from the MPP manifesto of 2016. Those are not my words. Suffering of teachers, suffering of farmers, suffering of nurses.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. In this regard,
have you helped the minister and the president to help the suffering?
Our government has helped a lot to alleviate
Do you know the price of steel iron today, the price of cement? And
Mr.
compared
Chairman,
to what it was in 2016?
Yes, but Mr. Chairman, before I answer this one, the government has helped a lot in this regard with very good intervention policies like the Planting for Food and Jobs, the 1D, 1F, and all these things we believe has helped in a way, to alleviate the plight of our people. And when you look at the teachers, the nurses, what government has done in terms of recruitment, in terms of paying the arrears, government has done a lot in this regard. And I believe that this has gone a long way to alleviate the problems in that sector. And the second question?
Chairman, the second question, Chairman, is for her if she does succeed. It's a matter of public concern. Contracts are awarded to service providers. Contracts are awarded to road contractors. Probably at the time that the contract was awarded, he paid 20 cedis for cement. Today, the same contractor is paying 50 cedis for a bag of cement when he paid 20 cedis. Iron rods was particularly maybe 3,500. Today, he's paying 5,500 for the same iron. The Ministry of Finance, with delayed payment, will you adjust the price fluctuation element in the computation of this contract in order to save the contractors? Will you be for that? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This is a decision that the Honorable Minister will have to take. And
what would be your advice assisting him? What would be your advice?
Mr. Chairman, per the law, I know that you can vary these things up to 10%. Beyond that, you will need to sit and then look at the whole.
But the effect of your taxes is it 10%? If iron rods was selling at 3,000, it's now 5,000, is it 10%? And then cement was 30 cedis and is now more than that. Is it 10%?
Mr. Chairman, that is what the law says. So,
So I'm saying the law and then the suffocation of Ghanaian businesses. And then, Chairman, I end with this. I think that probably, are you the deputy minister who served on the Ghana Exim Bank? Do you play a role there?
no, Mr. Chairman.
Ghana Exim is not under your watch. Now, Chairman, I end with it. Delayed payments by government. You see, the contractor goes to borrow money at 23% interest per annum. He executes the work. He is not paid for 2 years, sometimes 18 to 24 months. The interest accumulates on it. So you only pay contractors to service banks, and that is affecting the growth of the Ghanaian private sector and entrepreneurs in that sector. And Chairman, I'm not raising this for the purpose of our colleague, but just for us to have a national conversation on it. In Rwanda, if there is no budget for any project, there is no commencement of work on it in Rwanda. And additionally, if work commences on a project, it must see completion. In South Africa, a contractor's IPC or bill cannot be outstanding for more than 6 months. Your ministry, you still have outstanding obligations 2016, 2017, probably even much earlier. What do you think we can do as a country to improve upon this? This is not personal to you. Chairman, I'm done. But I just think that as a country, we are doing a lot of disservice to our private sector and to the entrepreneurial class of our country. He initiates, he goes to borrow, he undertakes the project really never gets completed. And then Ministry of Finance, and Chairman, you know I've had Minister of Finance friends. Their first intuitive answer, we don't have money, we don't have money. Are you also like that?
If you don't have money, will you say it or not?
Anyway, Chairman, I'm done. Thank you. And congrats to the Honorable Abner.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Member, I should not be asking you a question, but it's a matter of interest to all of us. Honorable Bodo and Honorable Richard Kwashiga went to court, and the Supreme Court ruled that the District Assembly's Common Fund is a constitutional creation. So any deductions based on legislation of any kind, apart from an amendment, is unconstitutional. Are you aware of that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
So I hope that during the consideration of the formula, you're not going to introduce anything based on any legislation, youth employment, or anything which is not an amendment to the Constitution. I hope not.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the budget was passed, the 2021 budget was passed with some alignments being made to the District Assembly Common Fund. And we came under the PFM law, which says that government, and section 15.2H also says that government can align its macro-fiscal targets to earmarked funds or statutory funds. Mr. Chairman, we all understand that 2021 is a peculiar year. Things are tough. We are now recovering from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, and government still has to fund school feeding. And so I take, we aligned an amount of 489 to the District Assembly Common Fund for school feeding. This is something that we have done before. In 2016, the full amount of school feeding was aligned. In 2018, we aligned parts. In 2019, we did not I think. And then in 2020, we did align a certain portion. But Mr. Chairman, this is as a...
In 2021, are you aligning or you are not aligning?
I mentioned that we have aligned a portion of that as well.
491, that's
481,
Chairman, your question,
489, yes.
I'm just stating it. So you see, instead of budgeting for school feeding, you are feeding on the objection Chairman is raising. You are realigning and cutting off what should ordinarily go to the district assemblies.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. In computing the formula, what is supposed to go to the assemblies have not been touched. It is still the same. The 50.74% of the funds should go to the assembly. And that remains so, I believe.
Honorable Minister, we are not arguing with what is stated in the law. We're saying that Parliament passed the law. We made an error. The Supreme Court has corrected us, for which reason we cannot perpetuate that error. Says that the law which says that any law which is in conflict with the PFM or whatever law, PFM law, the PFM law should have priority. That interpretation does not affect the Constitution. The 5% only of national revenue, which should go to the district assemblies. And I'm particular about this because you all know that for all the MPs, for all MPs, that is the only life we have. The district assemblies, the little 5% of that money that is reserved for MPs, it does more than the 95 or so that is reserved for the
Mr.
the
Chairman,
time. So
sorry.
without us, without that money, no MP will come back. Without that small portion, 70,000, a quarter, and things, without that, no MP will come back here. So if you touch that one, please be.
Mr. Chairman, that hasn't been touched. I must state it on record that that hasn't been touched.
Very well.
Thank you.
This one is not a question. This is just to alert you that when we approve you and you are coming to the House, go, however, whatever you have taken out of the common fund, restore it. And let us decide with the administrator whether we'll give you anything. That is part of the formula. On that note, I congratulate you on your for appearing before us. You will hear from us later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm very grateful to the committee and to the President and my minister as well. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, you're discharged. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
powers and principalities.
There's so much fire inside me.
Tragedy struck when part of the largest hillside at the kosher rubbish dump collapsed.
It's going to be fun to see how he goes about approaching this game.
We table issues relating to the arts and entertainment for a riveting discussion, of course, without fear nor favor.
The question the presenter asked them was a dumb question. You need to speak the fact and move.
Varied views. We agree to disagree.
So I would disagree with everything you said. I think that he's a smart guy. I think what he did.
No, but I also said he's a smart guy.
Yeah.
I guess that I'm waiting for the what next.
Yeah, I don't think that we have to wait for what next.
It sometimes gets confrontational, but that's the beauty of the game.
Today you are denying funny face.
It's not my brother.
You are denying funny face.
I don't know him.
You don't know funny face.
It's not my brother.
You don't know funny face.
It's a package. We meet, we sit, we dialogue, we learn, we progress. My name is Benefo Huabin Abrantepa, a proud blogger, and this is my forum.
Hi, my name is Ato Akins. Road accident is taking more lives than COVID-19. So be very careful on the road and stay safe. Do the right thing. Save a life.
It's been exactly 2 months and 2 weeks since some Rastafarians decided to take on one of Ghana's elite schools, I'm referring to Achimota, for their failure to admit them into the school. The reason? Well, they didn't want to conform to the rules of the school on grounds of religion. This week, the issue which has spanned this long eventually was heard in the High Court, and the court ruled in the favor of the Rastafarians. Now, the ruling was that the Achimota school is supposed to admit the students. Today, we have with us one of the fathers of the students who was refused admission in Achimota school. My name is Lord Harris Udasari, and welcome to another edition of Say It Loud. When we return from the break, we introduce our guest. Welcome back. This is Say It Loud. I am Lord Harris Udasari, and today our guest is the father of Oheneba Nkrabia. His name is Raswad. Ras.
Blessed, my brother. Greetings.
Welcome.
Yeah,
Greetings to you too. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
Now, let's just get straight to it. What was running through your head when the judge was about to read the ruling?
Well, you know, the whole process was very long. So she started off with different aspects of it. She even went into the Rastafari faith and its tenets.
Okay.
I didn't recognize that she understood
so
much about it, yeah. And then she went into the history of the school from way back, coming up to this time. She also dealt with the different precedents in different countries, different cases that they have won victory for the same issue.
Okay.
Individually, she went through all of those. So it took a process, so it wasn't sudden. But I wasn't surprised that she would have come to that verdict because of the fact that from the beginning she showed a certain amount of consistency by saying that she wants to expedite the case so that the children will not suffer. And the reason why she wants to do it because it is bordered on rights.
Okay.
So she wanted to ensure that the rights are not violated. So from seeing how she was approaching it from that time, I wasn't surprised that the verdict was there, but I was very pleased and touched and moved by it. Yeah.
You said you were a bit surprised when she was given the tenets of the faith and all that.
Yeah, I was surprised that she had so much information available.
Okay.
And she seems very familiar with it. It's not like something that she was just reading.
Okay.
Like she was very familiar with the subject.
So what was your instant reaction when she said the last word of the judgment?
Yes, I mean, it was a sigh of relief,
Okay.
because we have been toiling with this issue for the longest while. And my son was right there, Tyron was on the other side. And I was more feeling it for them. Because I wasn't sure how they would have reacted if it had gone the other way. But when it went that way, I was really happy because of the fact that as children, they learned that when there's an issue, you should stand up and fight it to its ultimate to ensure that you get rights and justice. And I was very, appreciative of that.
I see. At some point during the entire proceeding, journalists were made to go out. They weren't allowed to cover it. So go ahead and tell us exactly what was contained in the judgments. What was it all about?
You mean the different...
The ruling that the judge gave. What was... Give us some details of it.
Well, I may not have all the details right now to give you because it's just so much.
Some brief summary of it.
Basically what she was saying is that, the school rules shouldn't be above the Constitution, right? And she made a point that how could they even think that, they can establish a school rule which would tell the child, based on his religion, to cut his locks, right?
Okay.
And the whole issue of the fact that a document wasn't signed according to what they were saying, that his application wasn't submitted to the school. And the question arose wherein how could that be submitted to the school when you put a blockade to prevent the child from coming in the school?
Okay.
And those rules that are inside the school is really supposed to be applied to students who have been admitted to the school.
That's true.
Not for
okay. Okay. But they haven't even been admitted yet.
They haven't been admitted.
So that
You're
doesn't
applying
apply.
those rules about here and stuff like that.
Okay. What would have been your next step if the ruling hadn't gone your way? Let's say the judge had said that
would have
you should
appealed.
cut.
Yeah, would have
cut the
appealed
hair
it, would have
over.
took it to the higher court and battle it from there. Because we were going by the Constitution and recognized that the Constitution had given that right. So if we have to take it to the next level to get justice, we would have done that.
I see. So you're prepared to take it all the way.
Yes. I even told my son that, look, if we have to appeal, it means that you have to go into another school right now. Right? If we have to appeal it, you have to go into a school immediately, because this may be a long drawn out process.
That's true. Okay.
So I was preparing him for that.
I see. Now, about that, some persons, including veteran journalist Kwesi Pratt, have proposed that your child or you take them to a different school. Is this something you're looking at?
I was listening to what, reading what Mr. Pratt, Comrade Kwesi Pratt said.
Yeah.
And, he has a sentiment of so many Ghanaians, maybe 75, 85, maybe even 90% of Ghanaians feeling that same way based on the behavior of the authorities and the kind of threats and bitterness that has been shown to these children. So I think they have a valid point that way, but I haven't finally decided yet what I'm going to do, because I even, heard that the Attorney General is going to make a presentation this evening, 5:30. I'm sorry, the Minister of Education at
Okay.
5:30. So I'm waiting to hear about that. Then I also heard that the Attorney General came in and made a statement today strongly that the school, you know, has no right or jurisdiction to go over the ruling that took place.
Okay.
So it's something to be considered. Today's almost finished. I will look into it tonight and see what is the next move.
Okay. We also had reports about Oheneba and Tyrone getting scholarships from several other schools. Is this something that you were
It wasn't.
considering?
No. It was rumors.
What happened to that?
Yeah, it was rumors because so far we haven't seen the face of anyone. We haven't received no phone numbers. We haven't received no address. Nothing like that. It was just rumors spread. You know, it was spread in the media for what reason I don't know.
So you didn't get any such thing?
No
scholarships from any school?
No, those are just passing comments as far as we are concerned, because we haven't seen anyone step up to the plate and say, yes, I am ready to give a scholarship.
Oh, really?
Yeah, none.
When is Oheneba going to school? Oheneba and Tyrone, when are they going to school?
Well, we are preparing to put them in school tomorrow.
Which is Thursday.
Which is Thursday, yeah. Yeah.
And what course is he going to read? I'm referring to Oheneba.
He's doing general arts.
He's doing general arts. Okay.
Yeah.
I see. Tell me a little bit about Oheneba. How is he as a person?
Well, he has always been a very quiet, you know, very quiet, cool, calm person, you know, very collected. I mean, just as you see him on the television, he doesn't speak that much. And he's being the focus is on his work, you know, his school work or whatever work that he has to do, you know, but at the same time, he's very compassionate, you know, someone when you get him at the moment to really speak with him, he dialogue properly and make a lot of sense from the discourse.
Are you worried that he may be victimized or intimidated when he goes to school?
It's possible, but it's not going to be that easy because of the fact that not just Ghanaians that are watching the school, not just the students, because there's a lot of students who disagree with the position of the school authorities. There are a lot of teachers in there that disagree. So it's not a simple thing as we may think it is, that the whole school is having some kind of hostility or whatever.
Okay.
But we are prepared to address whatever issues legally if it comes up, because the children, they'll be alert. They have, you know, from this, they have gotten some experience in terms of, you know, when issues come up, how to deal with it. So in the event of the school trying to do, I mean, some of the authorities, members of the authorities trying to do anything, you know, we'll be alert immediately, and then we will take whatever legal action that we have to take.
I mean, apart from the school authorities, generally right now he's going to be under the microscope. Every move of his is going to be monitored because it's really blown. It's not even in Ghana alone. It's all over now.
Yes.
Don't you think he's going to be there's going to be an eagle eye on him now?
Oh, certainly. He will be under he will be under the radar for 24/7. I agree with you. But I think he has the capacity to handle that situation.
Has it given him the extra motivation to, you know, be more hardworking in school? I know he's a smart kid, but how is he taking everything now?
Yes. No,
I'm sure his grades is going to be under scrutiny. Every move.
Yes. But you see, what happens is that this experience, you know, has elevated him a certain kind of a way in his mind in terms of what needs to be done in an environment like this. Because what they have done so far is to let the child recognize that, look, you cannot mess up. You cannot do anything that is not, you know, in order a certain kind of way. And you have to come way above the average to be able to be in that school because of the fact that the discrimination is there and they have shown it and so on. So he has to do his best. He has to be better than, you know, what he would, you know, would be thinking about before he decided to go to the school.
He comes off as a daddy's boy. Is that the case?
I wouldn't really say that. Really, I think it's more his mother. You know that.
Oh, really? Mother's boy.
Yeah.
How is the family taking it? I mean, you said your bit and that of Oheneba, but how about the other siblings and the mom?
Yeah, he has two younger brothers.
Okay.
Oh, they are taking it very, I mean, they are watching and, I think they understand the issues very well, and they are affected, they are not so much affected by it.
Okay.
Because they are a little bit distant. But nonetheless, I think they are understanding the issue. The mother is beginning to understand why I decided in the beginning that we should fight this issue. Originally, in the beginning, she didn't want it to happen because of the exposure.
Yeah.
All of the ridicule and the publicity and all of that. But eventually, she recognized it was the right thing.
And after the ruling, how is she taking it?
Oh, she's very, very excited. And, she felt like, she's feeling like it was worthwhile. Something that was very good to, put up a fight for.
Okay, we are going to take a quick break here.
Yes.
When we return, we are going to delve further into the conversation and how everything is going to pan out for Oheneba and Taran Magai as they go to the Achimota school. You are still watching Say It Loud. Please do stay. Thank you for staying. We are still talking about the Achimota and Rastafarian saga. Today we have with us in studio father of one of the students who was refused admission by the school, and the person of Ras Aswad Nkrabia. Now, Ras, you were telling us about preparations for Oheneba's school. Now, one of the grounds that, the main reason why the school didn't want to admit him in the first place was because of the locks and the concern about how he's going to keep it kept. Tell us, how do we keep locks kept so it doesn't look in,
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised that they would have even said something like that, because when they look at Oyenba's locks, it's so neat and tidy. It doesn't necessarily have to do anything else to it to go to the school, because that's how it keeps it all the while. But it's a regular routine. You wash your hair with shampoo and you oil the scalp on the outside and so on and so forth. Sometimes you may feel like leaving it, another time you may feel like tying it up.
Okay.
Just to make it look a little more presentable in some environments. You may cover it, like you see I have mine wrap, and some people may put on some other kind of covering on it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not anything that is difficult to keep, Those who live around the beaches, they'll probably go to the beach maybe even 2-3 times a day. I'm sure almost every day. And those who live in the villages where there are rivers, waterfalls, and so on, they have access to it. They will go there even more often than us who live in the city.
Okay.
But, it is something that is taken care of on a regular basis, and oil. And not just any oil, there are special oils that we use, that has a certain amount of nutrients and values in it that will, keep the air a certain kind of...
the omega oils and all that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not something that people just think, you don't care for it, and they don't understand the reason why sometimes it gets brown. It gets brown because of the elements, the sun, the light, seawater. So before they used to look at it and say, it is nasty, it is dirty, whatever, but they didn't understand that it is the element that changes the color and gives some part of it that brown color naturally. Now it has become a fashion where people go to the salon to get that kind of look.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
And, dreadlocks is now a fashion statement for even multinational corporations. You see, they are using dreadlocks to sell their products and their items, so on and so forth. So it is a little bit surprising that in a time like now, when it has gone mainstream basically in terms of being everywhere in the world as a fashion, for the authorities of Achimota School to get up now and say that one of the reasons why they don't want them in there is because of it may not be hygienic, and it may come with lice, and that's what one of the lawyers for the second respondent got up and said in court, and that just goes to show that we are right, that they are discriminatory, because how could you get up and say something like that when you don't know the child, you haven't gone close to the dreadlock to see if lice is inside there, but you are saying that those are some of the reasons why you wouldn't want them inside.
But is this something that has ever come up before?
People maybe at a distance may wonder, because they are not familiar with, so they have all kind of perception. But we have never been face to face with Oinaba and that or any of my sons with that issue. You know, people have a lot of different bias because they may think that person is aggressive or you know, they smoke weed or they do this or they do whatever. And based on the false perception that is projected in the society, you know, they keep their distance. They may think that they are mentally ill because they see the person who is mentally ill have the same hairstyle, but that's a person who is mentally ill and not washing the hair and doing so on and so forth. But when you can tell a clear difference between a real Rastafari and someone who is just walking the street aimless and probably mentally ill.
I see. And that is not going to be a problem for Oheneba when he's in school. I mean, maintaining his hair.
No,
keeping it kempt.
He's not a board. He's not going to be a boarder.
He's not going to be a boarder?
No.
Ever?
No.
He's going to be a day student from
yes.
SHS 1 to SHS 3 or 4.
Exactly. So that is not going to be issue because he's a vegetarian. So I could not even allow him to board in that school because I would have problem preparing his meal.
Okay.
You know, there's so many, and that's what been happening in the past. It was difficult to prepare his meal at the other schools because the people, they don't understand how to do the vegetarian food a certain kind of way. So we always, you know, prepare his meal from home.
I see. Does it bother you though, looking at what he's had to endure? Everything that has transpired from when the issue started. We are in June now. It started somewhere in April. How do you feel about it?
I think it is.
And how it can affect him even as young as he is.
I think it's affecting him in a more positive way than negative.
Oh really?
Yeah, it is strengthening his character. It is giving him an opportunity to, you know, actually engage with these challenges, these real challenges in life. You know, I mean, growing dreadlocks from way back ancient time has always I've had that kind of challenge. You know, even when you read the Bible and you see different characters who, based on their dreadlocks, they go through different challenges, right? So it comes with that, you know, it's part of the terrain of being Rastafari, is that you grow that kind of strength to endure certain things. And there are those who, they will love you with a passion for it, and there are those who will hate you equally the same way. So you have to find a balance between both. Like, for instance, when I walk the street, I get a lot of respect in Ghana. Rastafari, honorable, righteous. Very positive words that come from the reggae music. This is how they greet you in the street, right? And there are those now who don't like you, they won't say anything or they will look at you with scorn or whatever. So you get to understand that the world is like that.
I see. And when you look at all that, I mean, everything that you've said now, looking at how long he stayed in the house, how is he going to catch up? Because he's missed out on a lot.
Yeah, it's not a problem for him. You know, a greater part of Oinaba's life, in his earlier life, he was homeschooled.
Oh.
Yeah, he only came out when he was about maybe 11. Somewhere, maybe 10.
So maybe when he got to grade 3, grade 4, that's when he...
Yeah, all those years he was homeschooling. He was doing homeschooling.
And so when this issue started, were you homeschooling him? Was he learning to
he was in
make
school.
up?
He has been to about 2 or 3 schools.
During this period, when this saga started?
Yeah, before that, yeah. So you know, to learn or have your lessons at home is not a problem for him because he's used to doing that.
Okay, so he can learn fast and catch up with the...
Yeah. So now they are even preparing to be ahead of the school because when you do homeschooling, it prepares you ahead of the general curriculum because it cuts out all of the unnecessary things that they teach you in school and send you straight to the subject, the essence of in what took place.
What did you ask him? Give me how it played out.
What a blow by blow.
Yeah, you get it.
Yeah, you know, I was saying we were talking about the issue of the fact that they have to endure all of this. So this one was more an endurance because he was trying to figure out now. So when we're gonna go back to school.
So it was like a family meeting, not a father, or just you and him. Okay.
Yeah. It was was saying, when is he going to go back to school now? And I was telling him, you know, as we told you before, that when this case finished, because we knew it was going to be short, because the judge kept saying that she's going to expedite it.
Okay.
So as soon as this finished, then we will decide to see exactly, we'll decide on exactly what to do, to, you know, to put you into another school, or it may go this way where you still go to the same Archimota. So we're discussing, you know, all of that options, and then the challenges that came, and the glory that came as well. So we're looking into all those things.
Okay, I see. And what did he say?
Well, I mean, he was very appreciative of it. He was saying, well, he's happy that he have had that experience, you know, to see, because I have been an activist the whole of my life, basically, and I used to take them to a lot of these activism, like, for instance, the anti-GMO struggle with food sovereignty Ghana. That's our movement, and from they were very small, they have been on the front line with us, on the street, into these meetings, so on and so forth.
Oh,
They have
okay.
been a
So he's
part
very
of it.
active.
They understand the activism in that sense.
I see.
So this isn't like another campaign for them, seeing it and being a part of it. It's like a campaign.
Okay.
That's how it is for me. And that's why the school is so surprised that it happened, like, because it became a campaign.
I see. Would you have still gone further with this approach if it was any other school?
Once they were violating the rights of the child, yes, I would have taken it the same way.
So throughout his journey as a pupil, as a student, you never met any friction or tension as far as his health is concerned?
No. All the schools that
the
we
basic
have
school
been,
that he, junior high school,
there was
nothing like
no
that?
problem with the dreadlocks. That's why I was surprised that when they were talking about floodgate, right? And if you want to find out if there will be any floodgate, go to those schools that those children went, including Tyrone, and see if there was any floodgate there when they were there, because they accepted them there. All the schools that Rastafarian children have been, there was no floodgate. There was nothing like what they're trying to say. Once they accept them in there, it's going to encourage other people to come. You're going to have this one, you're going to have that one. It's not real.
Did you continue to push this case because he still wanted to be in Achimota? Did he at any point say, come on, man, Dad, I'm tired. I don't want to do Achimota anymore. Let's just get some other school that will accept me?
In the last part, when the school was putting up that kind of a resistance, he wanted to go to another school. Just recently, he wanted to go to another school. But for me personally, my issue was more on the rights of the fact that he has a right to be into any school that he desired to be in Ghana, especially if it's a government school. So for me, it is probably a little bit different than how he would be seeing it. But he was, you know, fighting to be in the school because, you know, they heard so much about that school and, you know, looking forward to be there. And granted, the school has a good reputation in a sense for, you know, those who have passed through there and have become very important people in the society.
Okay. So, on the back of this, were you disappointed when you heard that Achimota School is thinking about appealing the court's decision?
No, I wasn't surprised. I wasn't disappointed or surprised because of the fact that that's their trademark. When the GES made that U-turn, it was the same school who caused that to happen. You know, it was the same board and that guy, Angel Cabano or whatever his name is.
Angel Cabano.
Yeah. It was that same group of people who caused the GES to make that U-turn. So for them to come now and do this, it's not surprising. And I think they also have a right to do it based on the Constitution. If something happens in court and you don't like it, you appeal it. And that's what they're doing. So I wasn't really surprised about that. I was more a little taken aback a little bit that they decided to move so quick to try and do it. But that is all.
Okay. Now, in the event of all this, I know a number of known personalities, prominent Ghanaians who have Achimota School as their alma mater, have come out and back your stance. Have you gotten anything from perhaps some people who are still in the school? I'm referring to maybe some of the teachers.
No, I haven't been speaking with any. There's even a dreadlock teacher in there.
Mhm.
And she has children, and the children have dreadlocks, and they cannot go to that school.
A teacher of Ashimota with dreadlocks, but the children cannot attend
The children
Ashimota.
have dreadlocks, and they cannot go to Ashimota school.
You know this how?
Huh?
How do you know this?
Oh, I went the same day when I went to take her anybody. She was the one who came and said they may not accept him in school.
She gave you heads up.
Yeah, but she said, go ahead and try anyway. You can never tell.
After the court ruled in your favor, have you heard anything from her? Has there been any interaction?
I haven't been back over the school. I've tried to keep her out of it one and to just let the natural process take its course, yeah.
Okay. Do you see or feel like this is a win with the ruling?
Yeah.
I mean, taking the appeal attempts by the school aside, do you feel that the court's ruling for Oheneba and Taiwan to be admitted into the school, do you see it as a win?
It's massive. It's a massive victory, and it's a massive win in many different ways, because from now on, whenever there's going to be any issue in court concerning children's rights as regards to their religion, their culture, so on and so forth, it will become a precedent for generations and generations to come, and they will be using them as an example in court, just like the judge did with the South Africa case and the Kenya case and so on. So they have gone down in history as, individuals who fought for some rights in Ghana.
So you feel that they have, or you feel that you have sacrificed for future Rastafarians in Ghana?
Yeah, definitely. Because when I just came here, and even up until recently, there was a whole lot of issues. So many issues. Even the DVLA at once refused to take the pictures of Rastafarians to give them their license.
They're also asking you to cut your hair before you take a picture?
Yes, they refused. And even there was a gentleman who told me he went to the immigration and showed them immigration, the passport picture. And they refused to process him because of his dreadlocks. Ghanaian. So it happens on so many different levels. And I've always wondered why nobody is prepared to actually challenge the system.
So does that mean that you don't have a driver's license, you don't have a passport?
Yes, exactly. That's what it means.
You don't?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
How did you?
I mean, I went the normal way and got it. But what I'm saying is that they have done that to individuals who they can get away with that, with. Yeah, so, but I'm saying now, these little discrimination have been going on for long in the system, and I was always wondering why don't they just take these people to court and teach them a lesson so that all of this will stop.
You won the case against, before, we don't know how the appeal will go, but as it stands now, we know you've won the case. You are to Oheneba and Tauna to be admitted into the school, so that's a victory. Moving on, is this going to be a foundation or a stepping stone for you to tackle other issues that you feel you have marginalized?
You're right. We have already set up a foundation called MAAT.
MAAT?
Yeah, M-A-A-T.
Okay.
MAAT. Social, Political and Environmental Justice Foundation. It's for that same purpose. It's for those who are disenfranchised, who have been discriminated against, and for the destruction of the environment and so on and so forth. And this foundation was inspired by what these children is going through right now. And we hope that they will take it up themselves as ambassadors and as advocates for rights and justice.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Mr. Ras Aswad and Krabia. What are your final words?
Oh, my final word is that Ghanaian children should, or not really children, I would say young people, should listen to what most people are saying today about fixing the country. right? There's a lot of things here that needs to be fixed, and we are only talking about fixing it so that every one of us will benefit, and it doesn't have to do with any particular party, but just in general where the system is concerned. The youth must recognize that the only way that we can become much better is to pay attention to the social and political issues of the society and make your contribution there. And that is where this issue of comes in terms of fixing it. Whatever you see wrong that is out there, don't just be quiet. You should speak up and you should make moves to change it.
All right, thank you. So those are the final words of Father Opanheneba Nkrabea, one of the Rastafarian students who, by way of the court ruling, is to finally go to school. I'm referring to the Achimota school. Yes, his father's name is Ras Aswad Nkrabea. And that's it for this edition of Say It Loud with me, Lord Harisido Asari. Do join us for our subsequent ones.
Powers and principalities. There's so much fire inside me.
Tragedy struck when part of the largest hillside at the kosher rubbish dump collapsed.
It's going to be fun to see how he goes.
Let him go there now. What are you going to do to step up cocoa plantations on those lands that have been degraded by this menace of Galamsey? Thank you. That's my last question, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, when we talk about the land degradation and vis-a-vis cocoa production in the Amansi area, it is mind-boggling because when I was a little kid, I used to walk through large tracts of land, cocoa farms, to my old man's cocoa farm. But today, all those cocoa farms are gone. So it is something that is causing a lot of problems in the area because the lands can no longer be used for any other purpose. They are degraded, so degraded in such a way that even reclamation has become a big challenge. If there's a way to reclaim those lands, we have to do it so we can put those lands back into cocoa production. Until that time, as I speak with you right now, I don't know what we can do to raise cocoa production in the area. The only relief here is the Cocoa Board's innovative ways of what they call the vertical production technology, where even if it is 1 acre farm, the inputs and then the hand pollination and all those things that they've introduced have ensured that farmers still get some yields that, although it is not up to the amount of cocoa that we used to have in those areas. And this matter we are discussing here does not even apply only to the Amansi areas, but all the cocoa growing areas where small-scale mining, and for that matter, Galamsey, is prevalent. So it's a national duty, just like the president has waged a war. We all have to support it so that we can preserve these lands for agriculture and for cocoa production. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Gaga.
Honorable, you are from Pongado. Congratulations. Mr. Chairman is my good friend, so I'm not going to ask too many questions. Just one. Yes, Honorable Ado, going through your CV, I can see that you have been very instrumental in small-scale irrigation development and expansion. You did this even when you were not at the Ministry of Agriculture. Now, I have a very serious problem with small-scale irrigation in my constituency, and specifically Siniesi. There is a small-scale irrigation dam which operates under the auspices of the Irrigation Development Authority. This dam collapsed sometime in 2016. There was heavy flooding. For 4 years, I have been pursuing this matter to have the dam reconstructed. The dam is the Kasa Dam. If you're given the nod, what would you do to ensure that the people of Siniesi can have access to their dam, which gave way in as far back as 2016 June?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I have a soft spot for irrigation schemes in the country because of the effect of climate change on agriculture. So we can have all year round agriculture. So any dam that used to be in operation that has collapsed, maybe we need to take inventory of all these wells. Because if those, I don't know the hectareage of that about, I'll find out when I get there. I don't know the land area that was cultivated because of this dam. So since 2016, it means all these farmers have been rendered redundant. They don't have access to water to irrigate their crops, which is not a good thing at all. So my friend Honorable Agaga, Mr. Chairman, I would take inventory of these dams if I get the nod, and I go to the ministry. I work with the Irrigation Development Authority and find out what has kept the authority this long to bring back that dam. Thank you.
Yes, leadership.
Chairman, I should thank you and also join you in congratulating the Honorable Yao Frimpong Ado. And he's a friend of mine, and I have no hesitation admitting to that. In terms of temperament, he's a fine gentleman. How I wish that today's measure was only about temperament. I would have said that he's a cool, calm person, and I trust that he would assist the minister in the execution of his job if he so gets recommended by our committee. But suffice it to add that I have a duty to ensure that you are in compliance with Article 94 of the Constitution. I have a duty to ensure that there is no matter of moral turpitude or matter of any criminality associated with you. But essentially, Chairman, even as he meets that requirement as an elected member of Parliament, I'll take it from where the Honorable Agalga left it. And to paraphrase his word, inventory of irrigation. I want you to expand your inventory of irrigation. And when I was Minister for Trade and Industry, I traveled to South Africa to the International Development Corporation, I believe. And subsequent to my return, I was convinced that the Ministry of Trade needed to work with the Minister for Agriculture to raise additional funding to support irrigation development. I should say that I proudly initiated the Tamni Irrigation Development Project and wrote that some work be done for Amate in the eastern region, Umprem in the central region, and Kamba Inwa in the upper west region. And Kamba will do the trick for the people of the upper west region. It's been on the drawing board since independence. And I just think that when you go, given your interest in irrigation, I would add, as I said, I'm only adding to the list. And then now, my own Pagaza on the Yendi Road, there is a community called Pagaza. I'm sure the Honorable Tampulu will tell you, when you jump, when you are leaving Tamale Township from Toyapala, you jump that hill. The whole of that valley, if an irrigation facility is provided, can increase rice production and other horticultural. So the road still leads you to Tampuli's father's village. Tampuli, is that right? Or you correct me that it's not Yendi, but Gushego. Or I'll go to Zinendo. I won't come to Zinendo. Then to Sabare. You have Sabare ending that loop there when you get past Yendi. So just to take note that you would bring this to the attention of your minister, and I think it's worth pursuing if, to paraphrase you again, want to ensure all year-round farming in the country. So my first question will be page 1 of your CV. You are reporting to chairman as if somebody is doing the CV for you. He has been a member. You are not saying I'm a member. Then you see, go to your second paragraph. He has been a member of the 6th and 7th Parliament. Then next paragraph, he has been a member. So it comes to me as if you engage somebody to improve the CV for you. Who want you? You see, you are under oath. And whatever you are providing here to, we are taking it under oath. So will be somebody reporting on your behalf. So Chairman, if you can indulge him, then we say, I am Yao Frimpong Ado. I was a member of the 6th and 7th Parliament. I served on the committee, and Chairman, proudly, as you've indicated, I served on the Special Budget Committee, and he's shown enormous interest, particularly in budgetary provisions for the Auditor General and for the Electoral Commission. He's very mindful of those constitutional bodies and whether they are getting adequate enough resources or not, or shrage. We are not there yet, but I share your position that we should increase the portfolio to them. So your CV, what do you have to tell Chairman? He has. And then prior to becoming legislature, is more of a reporter speech, as I recall my secondary school English, instead of the CV being your personal thing. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I acknowledge Honorable Rankin's sentiments on the CV. I thought it was a style, but I just want to declare that this is me, Yao Frimpong Ado, saying everything in this document as mine and wholly mine. So I think that brings to rest.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Then when you come to page 2 of your CV, executive masters in what? You just say KAIPIC. For purpose of our record, what was the masters in?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's security, conflict, peace, and security at the Kofi Annan International Training Center.
That's an institution.
Yes.
But I wanted to know subject matter.
Yeah, these are the key subjects that are taught over there. It's about conflict and
so, to put it simply, you have masters in what?
In conflict resolution, security, peace. Conflict resolution that will bring about peace, that will ensure security. That's it.
On your certificate, what is written?
And it is the same as I said, conflict, peace, and security. Yeah.
So don't break it down into conflict, that will bring that will not go on the certificate.
Have you paid all your taxes?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Have you been declaring your assets in accordance with the Constitution? And then corporate social responsibility. I see that you've done some work on it. And my view is that we need a corporate social responsibility policy. I should again say that I started working on one at the Trade Ministry before I left. But we need a legislation. Corporate social responsibility cannot be funeral donations and outdoor support. And I think that even as we think of legislating on it as a country, we should dedicate it to sports development. We can decide that all these corporate entities contribute for the purpose of sports development.
Because you like sports. I prefer dedicated to entertainment.
Chairman, then you like Torah. You know what the Dagomba is called Torah. Zuera will tell you. Zuera will share it with you later. So the entertainment will be Torah. So corporate social responsibility. This is what I think. And Chairman, I can only wish the nominee well. Thank you.
Right, Honorable, you and I are in the Amansia district. I mean, it's a big, we used to be one district. It's now been broken up into about 5 different districts. It was a huge one, right? But it's obvious that Amansia West, as it used to be, is one of the least, that benefited least from the Amansia district at the time. But we also, as I said, one of the places we have the most in terms of cocoa production, in terms of gold. The 2 places, and we are victims of our own endowment. Because we have so much gold, we are the target of everybody who wants gold. And it's also, once you target gold, you lose cocoa. And so there's a conflict. Tell me, as a Deputy Minister for Agri, how will you ensure that with the balance, that those who desire to mine can mine so responsibly that those of us who prefer to farm will not be negatively affected?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the ethos of the current fight against Galamsey is all about that. How to ensure responsible mining that will not degrade the land as it has been done in the past. It is a Herculean task. In fact, our side of Amansie, I don't think there's even more land for small-scale mining again. Every land is gone. So all we need to do is how to come out with a program to reclaim all those lands and bring them back to agricultural production levels. So, Mr. Chairman, I think if you go by the new directives, programs for the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, where there is this operation halt in these Galamsey activities, what we need to do is to encourage them and then also encourage the establishment of the community mining, that concept, so that community people will be responsible for every action they take when they are given a certain portion of land to do the community mining. Then those of us who are interested in agriculture will also be left alone to do our farming. So we only hope for the best in this direction. There must be collaborative efforts between the Ministry of Agri, the Lands and Natural Resources Ministry, and local government ministry especially, so we can have a lasting solution to this problem. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very well. I know for a fact that one of the major reasons you had a tough re-election were the road networks in your constituency. Now, what assurance can you give your constituents that with this elevation and honor, you will put pressure on to ensure that the roads which were not constructed will be finished before the next election?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Um, if you look behind me, my traditional authority in the constituency and districts are fully represented here, and they represent the Omahine of Mason Kwanta traditional area, and I have my DCE also here, all coming to witness this occasion. So the only thing I can tell. Oh.
We're talking about monsoon roads. That's why his wife was not mentioned.
That's right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we know that 7 of our roads have been awarded on contract, and we are just praying that by close of next year or 20.
Can you mention those roads?
Yes,
we'll
I
have
can.
You on record, then we can measure whether you would follow up to ensure that those road networks are improved. So don't just say 7, then tomorrow you come back. Which roads are you going to work on to get the constituency have improved road network in it? So don't just say 7. Which are the roads? If you can't mention all, but at least attempt to share with us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, thank you.
The first one is the Mem Junction, which is the gateway to our district. Mem Junction to Manso Kumpesi. And then from Manso Kumpesi to Manso Dewisasu. The third one is Manso Kumpesi to Tontokrom. Then we have Manso Nipanchemia to Manso Aboso. There's another one from Kansri Junction to Watreso. Then we have another one also coming from Memdomi to Odahu. That will link to Odotobri district. And then
you see, you can't get all of them done within this. So let's focus on 2 major ones, which you are sure can assist you get done. And the rest, if you get them, thank
these
God.
are short roads, so once they've been awarded, the contractors are working on them right now. We just have to put pressure on them to complete.
Chairman, I'm building my dossier so that I'll go to the villages and say he promised these roads, he couldn't deliver them.
Very well. Well, on this note, we thank you for attending upon the committee to answer questions. You'll hear from us later. You're discharged for now.
powers and principalities. There's so much fire inside me.
Tragedy struck when part of the largest hillside at the kosher rubbish dump collapsed.
It's going to be fun to see how he goes about approaching this game.
We table issues relating to the arts and entertainment for a riveting discussion, of course, without fear nor favor.
The question the presenter asked them was a dumb question. You need to speak the fact and move.
Varied views. We agree to disagree.
So I would disagree with everything you said. I think that he's a smart guy. I think what he
No,
did.
but I also said he's a smart guy.
Yeah.
I guess that I'm waiting for the what next.
Yeah, I don't think that we have to wait for what next.
It sometimes gets confrontational, but that's the beauty of the game.
Today you're denying funny face. It's not my brother. Today you're denying funny face. I don't know him. You don't know funny face. It's not my brother. You don't know funny face.
It's a package. We meet, we sit, we dialogue, we learn, we progress. My name is Benefo Abrantepa, a proud blogger, and this is my forum.